September 30th, 2025, the Marine Corps Base at Quantico, Virginia, awoke to an air of anticipation. Rows of service members stood at attention beneath the grey morning sky as cameras and reporters gathered near the parade grounds. This was not a routine day of military drills. The United States President had chosen this stage, the heart of Marine training and leadership, to make a claim that would once again ignite headlines around the world. In front of senior generals, admirals, and invited officials, President Donald Trump stepped up to the podium. His tone was at once defiant and impatient, carrying a familiar grievance that America, under his leadership, had not been properly recognized for its role in shaping global peace. With characteristic candor, he said, "Will we get the Nobel Prize?" Absolutely not. They're going to give it to some guy who didn't do a damn thing. They're going to give it to a guy who wrote a book about the thinking of Donald Trump and what it took to end the war. The Nobel Prize is going to go to a writer. We'll see what happens, but it would be a great insult to our country. I don't want it. I want the country to have it.
Will you get the Nobel Prize? Absolutely not. They'll give it to some guy that didn't do a damn thing. They'll give it to a guy that wrote a book about the mind of Donald Trump and what it took to solve the wars. And he'll get the Nobel Prize will go to a writer. No, but well, let's see what happens. But it's be a big insult to our country. I will tell you that. I don't want it. I want the country to get it.
The statement, just 10 days before this year's Nobel Peace Prize was to be announced, framed the award not as personal glory, but as a symbol of national honor. For supporters, it was a powerful assertion that America's sacrifices in conflict resolution deserved the world's respect. For critics, it was another example of the president's combative relationship with international institutions. To understand the weight of these remarks, one must remember that the Nobel Peace Prize has, since 1901, sought to recognize those who advance peace and reconciliation, often against the currents of power. Its laureates have included activists who risked their lives, negotiators who ended decades-long wars, and even heads of state whose breakthroughs in diplomacy reshaped regional politics. For Trump, however, the prize had become a recurring benchmark, a symbol that his foreign policy achievements were being overlooked. The Quantico Declaration was not the first time he expressed such resentment. Throughout his political career, Trump had publicly pointed to what he described as historic accomplishments that he believed met the Nobel standard. His summits with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the signing of the Abraham Accords in the Middle East, and his administration's pressure campaigns that, he claimed, reduced conflict in hotspots abroad. Yet the committee in Oslo awarded the honor to others, sometimes to activists with little official power, sometimes to leaders of reconciliation efforts far from Washington. Each decision sharpened his perception that the award reflected a political or ideological bias rather than an objective measure of peace building. The moment at Quantico, therefore, was as much about revisiting that grievance as it was about this year's contest. By raising the subject before a hall filled with military brass, the president intertwined the image of America's armed forces with his narrative of global peacemaking, implying that the sacrifices of US service members under his command had gone unacknowledged. Outside the base, analysts were quick to draw parallels with earlier leaders who coveted the Nobel Peace Prize. Some recalled Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1906 became the first sitting US president to win it for mediating the end of the Russo-Japanese War. Others cited Barack Obama's early-term award in 2009, granted more for his vision of diplomacy than for tangible results at the time. Trump's critics argue that his record is mixed at best, that while he facilitated certain negotiations, his rhetoric and policies often heightened international tensions. Supporters counter that he advanced bold talks others had failed to pursue, and that his unconventional style yielded breakthroughs that traditional diplomacy had long stalled. In the days following the Quantico speech, the debate intensified. Editorial boards around the world published competing op-eds, some arguing that a prize for Trump would politicize the award, others claiming that excluding him betrayed the committee's own stated mission to encourage peace. On television panels, former diplomats dissected whether his administration's initiatives, from détente with Pyongyang to fostering Arab-Israeli normalization, constituted lasting contributions to global stability or merely temporary deals. For historians, the controversy highlighted an enduring question. Should the Nobel recognize efforts made by national leaders who wield state power, often alongside military might, or should it focus primarily on individuals and movements working beyond government to reduce conflict? Trump's remarks brought that tension into sharp focus by implying that the award was meaningless if it overlooked a superpower's role in ending wars. Inside Norway's Nobel Institute, there was no official reply. The committee traditionally avoids public discussion before its annual announcement, relying instead on a long-standing process of nominations and deliberations carried out behind closed doors. Past experience suggests that public criticism rarely influences the outcome. Yet, as observers noted, Trump's outspoken style ensured that the prize, and his grievance about it, would remain in the global spotlight. The setting of the statement mattered as well. Quantico, known as a hub for marine training and strategic leadership, had seldom been the backdrop for such political declarations. By choosing a military venue, Trump emphasized that his pursuit of peace was not detached from strength, a theme he had often underscored in foreign policy speeches. To his audience of uniformed officers, the message suggested that their service and sacrifices were integral to the peace he claimed America had delivered. International reactions were swift. In Europe, several newspapers framed the remark as an effort to preempt the committee's decision. Some Asian commentators viewed it as a reminder of how domestic politics in the United States could ripple across global affairs. In the Middle East, where the Abraham Accords had reshaped certain diplomatic ties, a few editorials speculated that Trump's demand for recognition stemmed from a desire to cement his legacy amid shifting alliances. On social media, the soundbite about the prize going to a writer went viral, spawning memes and sparking heated debate between supporters who saw the remark as justified and detractors who mocked it as self-aggrandizing. Hashtags questioning the Nobel's neutrality trended alongside others, defending the committee's independence. Throughout the coverage, one theme persisted: the blurred line between peace as an ideal and peace as a product of power. For many observers, Trump's statement was less about the gold medal and diploma awarded in Oslo and more about redefining the narrative of who deserves credit for preventing wars. By publicly demanding the prize, or as he framed it, demanding it for the country, he challenged the idea that peace is measured solely by treaties or grassroots activism. Historians also pointed out that the Nobel Peace Prize has, on occasion, recognized wartime leaders precisely for their role in ending conflicts. Still, the criteria have always centered on demonstrable efforts toward reconciliation and dialogue. As one professor of international relations noted in a broadcast interview, Trump's argument highlights a real tension in how we evaluate peacemaking. Is it the ceasefire itself, the diplomatic process behind it, or the long-term reduction in hostilities that deserves honor? Meanwhile, the military setting underscored a deeper paradox. The very institution charged with waging war had been presented as the embodiment of America's claim to peacebuilding. For some, this emphasized the reality that power often underpins peace. For others, it cast doubt on whether the United States' recent policies truly advanced the spirit of international harmony that Alfred Nobel's will had envisioned. As the days counted down toward the official announcement in Oslo, global media continued to replay the Quantico clip, treating it as both political theatre and a genuine expression of grievance. Reporters outside the White House asked whether the administration had engaged in any behind-the-scenes lobbying for the award. Officials declined to comment, reiterating that the president had spoken for himself. Within the United States, public opinion surveys reflected a familiar polarization. Among Trump's base, the speech was viewed as a patriotic defense of American contributions. Among his opponents, it was dismissed as another attempt to stir controversy and dominate headlines. Some neutral observers expressed fatigue, noting that the argument over the Nobel often obscures the substance of policy. When the Nobel Committee finally convenes to reveal its choice, history will record whether Trump's latest demand had any bearing at all. But even if the prize goes elsewhere, the Quantico moment has already secured a place in the story of how modern political leaders engage with symbols of global recognition. It illustrates how international honors, once distant from partisan struggles, can become battlegrounds for national identity and personal legacy. As the camera crews packed up that morning in Virginia and the president departed the base, the debate he reignited continued to echo far beyond the gates of Quantico. For journalists chronicling the event, the scene was not just about a statement made in frustration. It was a reminder that the quest for peace and for the acknowledgement of peace remains inseparable from the politics of power. In the coming years, analysts and historians will revisit this moment as part of the broader narrative of how the United States defined its role in global stability during the Trump era. Whether one sees his comment as a legitimate critique of an elite institution or as an unwarranted demand for personal vindication, the remark at Quantico underscores the ongoing struggle to balance national pride with universal ideals. And so, as the world looked toward Oslo for the announcement of the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize, it did so with an added layer of drama, the question not only of who would win, but of what the prize itself signifies in an era when diplomacy, military might, and political spectacle so often collide.